delicious whole wheat bread you'll ever taste. At least in my family's opinion. And that's the opinion we're taking. This is a whole grain bread, so we're only going to use whole grain ingredients. In here, this is a wheat grinder. I buy my wheat whole, and then I grind it up in this. This is a Magic Mill grinder. I'm going to try to provide links on my website that you can go to Magic Mill and buy this if you would like to. You certainly can buy your whole wheat flour at the grocery store already ground. I like this because it's fresher, and I just think it makes a better product. I'm going to show you two different ways of making bread. The first one will be with my bread mixer. It's actually just a regular mixer. It's a Bosch. Let me just show it to you here. And of course it has a dough hook, and it has regular wire whips for cakes and cookies and so forth. It's my very favorite appliance. My first Bosch I had for about 25 years, and my husband gave me another one. So it's my very favorite one. Now, I know that all of you don't have that, and so I'm going to show you how to make bread without one as well. That way, you'll be able to do it either way if you choose. Now, I'm going to demonstrate 4 loaves of bread. You may not want to do 4 loaves at one time. I'm doing 4 because I have a family to feed, and I like to have plenty of bread. So, and also I have some special ingredients that I put in my bread, and I'm going to, with the recipe book that comes with your DVD, I'll put their proportions so that you can buy those ingredients if you want to. If you'd rather not buy them, I will sell a packet of those, enough to make 2 loaves of bread, because I think most people probably will make 2 loaves of bread. So you don't need to write down the proportions. In fact, I won't give them to you right now, but they'll be in the recipe book, and then again you can order them also. So for 4 loaves of bread, I'm going to use 4 cups of hot water. Now, bread making is really very simple. You have your main ingredients, and you can use a variety of things for those ingredients. So my liquid here is water. You can also make bread with warm milk. My mother-in-law actually adds a little bit of frozen orange juice concentrate. But mainly this is your liquid. I even have a bread recipe that uses applesauce in the yeast bread. So you have your liquid. Now, liquid in this case is our 4 cups of hot water. And then you always have to have some kind of oil. And so for 4 loaves of bread, I am going to use a half a cup of oil. Now, in this case, I used olive oil. You can use any kind of oil that you like. I use olive oil because of its health purposes. Now, I always measure the oil first in my little cup here, half-cup measure, because after that I'm going to put in my molasses or honey. And if you put it in the same container that you put your oil in, it slips out very easily. Now, when I make bread, sometimes I use honey, sometimes I use molasses, sometimes I use half and half. In this case, I'm just going to use molasses. You can see how easily that slipped out if you measure your oil first. Now we're going to use a tablespoon of salt. One time when I made bread, I forgot to put the salt in, and you definitely can tell a difference. So don't forget your salt.
Okay.
In here we have our liquid ingredients, our hot water, as hot as you can get it from the tap, because when you add your dry ingredients it cools it down. Our oil, molasses, and our salt. Now we're going to add about half of our flour, which is about 6 cups. I always count out loud. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I used to work in a cinnamon roll shop, and we were making large quantities of cinnamon rolls, and we were told to count out loud so that we wouldn't lose track of where we were. So I always do that. Okay, we've got half of our flour in here. We'll turn our Bosch on to just the first speed. We'll mix it up. point, I like to stop it and get any yeast that might be on the sides of the bowl and just get it down in there and just kind of get any that's on the center portion. It would probably mix all in anyway, but I just like to do that. Okay, so now we're going to add our mixture of special ingredients. In here, there's a mixture of some whole grains and some other healthful products. There's gluten, and there's oat bran, there's flax, there's wheat bran, there's soy, there's triticale flour, and oat flour. This makes a delicious blend, and it adds some extra protein, and it adds some extra fiber to your bread. And my family loves it, and everybody that I give it to loves it. So we'll just very slowly add that, letting it mix in. And there's probably about 2.5 cups of these ingredients. Again, in my recipe book, I'll give you the exact proportions if you want to buy them. And I'll also have the packet for sale. So now we've added about 8.5 cups of flour. We're going to let it mix a little bit. Now we'll start adding more flour. About 9.5. 10.5. As you can hear, the motor starts to grind down a little bit as the dough mixture gets thicker. So one of the ways we know we've added enough flour is that the engine grinds down and it starts to collect into a ball. 11.5. You have to let it mix for a minute before you can really tell if you need more flour. Now, to me, this dough still looks sticky, so we're going to add more flour. We've added about 11.5 cups. I think it will take another cup. We'll add it gradually. As you can see, it's now starting to clean the sides of the bowl. And that's a good sign that you've added enough. But we still need to wait, because as it mixes the flour in, we may need to add some more. But right now it looks pretty good. If your dough is too sticky, then it's difficult to handle to make it into a loaf. And if it's too dry, then your loaf just isn't quite as tender as you want it to be, and your loaf is kind of dry. So right now that looks pretty good. As you can see, it's forming a ball and it's cleaning the sides of the bowl. So we're going to let that mix for 10 minutes. And after about 5 minutes, we'll come back and check it and see if we may need to add a little bit more flour. But right now, we'll just let it go for 10 minutes. So you can tell your friends that making bread is like making a cake. You just dump your ingredients in and mix it, and you've got delicious bread. It's now been mixing about 4 or 5 minutes. As you can see, it is forming into a ball, and it is cleaning the sides of the bowl. So I think that we have the right amount of flour. If there were flour still sticking to the sides, then that's not enough. And so I think this is about the right amount. That's what you want it to look like. This has now been going for 10 minutes. That's how long you're supposed to knead your whole wheat bread dough in a bread maker. And that's how it looks. And that looks very good. It's cleaning the sides, and it looks like it has a nice elasticity to it. We're now ready to form our bread into loaves. Again, we'll put a little bit of flour down and a little bit of flour on our hands. And take our dough out. And with our hands, of course, clean that as best we can. Now this particular bread, because of the ingredients that we've used, and also because it's been thoroughly kneaded, the gluten is developed enough that we don't, all we need is one rising. So we're going to form this into loaves right now. Now if you want to, you can put this in a bowl and let it rise till it's almost double in bulk, and then form it into loaves. In fact, you may want to try both ways and see which one you like better. I generally just form it into loaves at this point. It makes it a little bit quicker. Now this lump of dough here is going to make us 4 loaves of bread. So I'm just going to cut it into 4 pieces. Okay. Now there's various ways for forming bread into loaves. When I first started making bread, the instructions said to roll it out with your rolling pin and then roll it up. And I used to do that, but now this is just the easiest way that I found. So just watch my hands, and I just knead it. And as I'm kneading it, I form it into the shape of a loaf. Do you see how I did that? So now it's in the shape of a loaf. We try to get it nice and even. Okay. So that's how, to me, that's the easiest way to form bread into loaves. We put it in our bread pan, and of course we've sprayed our bread pan with Pam. You want to make sure that you do that. Okay. We'll do it again. Okay. Turn it and bring this fold over and go down. Turn it, go down, turn it. So when at this point, I'm kind of flattening it like that. Then I'm kind of tucking the ends under like that. And there you have a nicely shaped loaf. Now, these are bread pans that I inherited from my grandmother. It's a very unique shape, and I like to use them because that's what my grandma used. And I just have 2 bread pans like that, so that's all we get to do. Again, we bring this around, push down with your thumbs, make a quarter turn, push down with your thumbs, quarter turn. And as you can see, I'm starting to need a little more flour, but not too much. Okay. So we've made it into a loaf shape, and we've tucked our ends under. And the important thing is you want to try to get it so that it's even, so it's not too fat on one end and too skinny on another end. But regardless, it's still going to taste good. So don't worry if it's not shaped perfectly well. Same with this one. Now it looks to me like I didn't quite get this dough divided evenly. This is going to be a smaller loaf. But that's okay. You can make them as big or as little as you want. Looks like we need a little bit more flour. Okay. Now I will provide links on my website for you to go to Bosch and order one. Order a Bosch if you want one. But I'm going to also show you how to make bread just the old-fashioned way. And actually it's quite fun because you take out your frustrations and you just knead that dough, and you knead it for about 10 minutes. So as you can see, that's a smaller loaf there. Okay. So have a smaller loaf pan. So we will now let those braise for about 20 minutes, 20 to 25 minutes. We'll check them after that, and I'll show you what the bread is supposed to look like before you put it in the oven. It's now time for us to put our bread in the oven. I forgot to mention before, and this is important, make sure that you cover your bread with just a light dishcloth. not too heavy. The way that you can tell that your bread is ready to go in the oven is if when you push your finger in, it leaves a slight indentation. Okay? Now these are ready to go in the oven. You bake them at a 350-degree oven for about 30 to 35 minutes, depending on your oven. You may need to go a little bit longer. We want to make sure that the bottoms are nice and brown because we don't want them to be doughy in the middle. You want to bake them in the center of the oven. That's important. Don't stack them so there's some on a higher level and some at a lower level. They need to be in the middle of the oven. Okay, we'll put them in the oven now. Okay, we're now going to check to see if our bread is done. And the way that you can tell if they're done is if they have kind of a hollow sound and they're a nice golden brown on the top. And then I'll take one out. You see, it has a nice golden brown on the bottom, so they're done. It's important that you take the bread right out of the bread pans. Otherwise, they will get soggy bottoms. If you leave your bread in the pan, the steam will escape and actually create very wet bottoms of your bread if you don't take it out. So it's a good idea also to put it on a rack, and not just flat on the counter. Again, you'll get the soggy bottom thing. If you don't have a rack, even a dishcloth is better than straight on the counter. I put mine on their sides, and the main reason I do that is so I can fit 4 on my rack. Now you are ready to call your family together and get out the butter and the honey and the jam and sit down and just have a feast.